Hello there. So this is going to be the first example that I'm going to do using the law of sines. This is the second video from chapter 3.1. These problems, this is actually problem number 5, and let me put the page number up there. That's page 268. Okay, so we're given a situation here where we have two angles given and a side. So if any two angles are given and one side is given, we're going to have enough to do the law of sines. Because if you recall, in this case, I've got B, so recall we're using B and C in this case, so sine of B, sine of B, the angle B will be capital letter, and small b will equal sine of capital C over little c. So here we have three pieces. We have the sine of b, well, we have b at least. So we have b, we have c, capital C that is, and we have little b here. So we can find the sine of those values, and we can solve for our fourth of the four unknowns. We have three of them. And even say if they had given us a, little a, where we don't have all four, we can find the angle for a very easily. In fact, let's do that right now. So angle of A is going to, we know that the total of the three angles has to be 180 degrees. So A equals 105 plus 45. And I guess all of this minus 180. So let's redo that. So 180 degrees minus 105 plus 45. So that means we have, this adds up to 150, so that's 30 degrees. So we've got one solution already, and that's the angle of A. You can write it like this. You can just do capital A if you want. That's fine. Just make sure you distinguish between the capital letters and the lowercase letters for these if you're not going to use the other symbols. So even if they had given us the little a length instead of the little b length, we would be able to use the law of sines because we would still have three things. It wouldn't matter how we did it. Okay, so I'm going to solve for these, and let's just write these in down here. So I have sine of b is 45, so sine of 45 degrees over b, which is 20, equals the sine of 105 degrees over little c, so the length of c, which is what we're looking for. Okay, now we can cross multiply and solve for this, although we can solve for sine of 45 degrees without using a calculator if we want. Again, in the instructions, it's got round the answers to 2 decimal places, so you can feel free to use a calculator for this. That's going to be no problem. I will accept the answer like that, given that that's the instructions for the problem. So you'll be allowed to use a calculator on, well, certainly any quiz if you're taking it home, or any exam that you're going to be doing with this. All right, so we want to solve for C. So C is going to equal, what do we have? 20 times sine of 105 degrees all over the sine of 45 degrees, which is, we know to be root 2 over 2. All right, so, and that doesn't look real good. Let's try that again. Okay, so now we need a calculator to do this. So I'm going to put this into a calculator now. Let's actually move this over here. Okay, so first of all, we're dealing with a sine of a degree, so we need to make sure that we have our calculator set up for degrees. If you're using a TI, you use the mode button up top or top middle there. And we want to make it in degrees. So it's either going to be in radian or in degrees. So radian would be something like a pi by 2 or pi by 4 or something like that. We want it in degrees. So I'm going to arrow down, arrow to the right, and hit enter to highlight degree, and then I'm going to quit out. So second and mode will quit out of that. So now I should be calculating correctly. So you have to make sure that whatever calculator you're using is set to degrees if it's in degrees, or radians if it's radians. And again, I did the um, I solved for sine of 45 degrees using the unit circle. All right, so sine of 105. So our sine button is right there. We're going to put in just 105. It knows its degrees. I'll hit enter. So that's the sine of 105. I'm going to multiply that by 20. And I'm going to divide that amount by our denominator. So I'm going to divide by, I'll use parentheses here so I do the whole thing, root 2 over 2. So the square root button, I can just do 2 raised to the 0.5. And we're going to divide that by 2. So our answer rounded to 2 decimal places would be 27.32. So let's write that down. Okay, so now we have two things that we've solved of the three that we did not know. So what's left to solve is for the letter A. So now let me scroll down a little bit here. Let's remember that. So sine of A over A equals, I'm going to use the B and the sine of B because sine of 45 degrees we know. So we have the sine. We know what A is. A came out to be 30 degrees. And I'll write sine of B again, sine of 45 degrees. And B was 20. So using this, we can solve it. And I'm going to solve for these things first. So at 30 degrees, that's actually 1/2. So sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. And this is, again, root 2 over 2, sine of 45. And we have 20. So we can cross multiply. And we get 1/2 times 20 equals root 2 over 2 times A. So that gives us 10 over here. So 10 divided by root 2 over 2 is equal to A. And again, I'm going to scroll down. And essentially what we have here is we divide by this, which means we multiply by the reciprocal. So we actually have 20 over root 2 is equal to A. That's correct. What am I missing? Oh, that all looks right. Okay, and so we solve for that and see what we get here. So that's 20 divided by root 2. So this is about 14.14. So we have A is around 14.14. So if I scroll back up, I can fill in these things. You don't have to fill them in on the actual triangle if you don't want to. I can see your work. That'll be fine. But this, yeah, A is 14.14, and C we found to be 27.32. I've got 27.2. Hold on. Well, I probably wrote it in wrong down below, but this is what I had on my calculator. And then this angle here, we've calculated to be 30 degrees. So now you can see the triangle is completely solved. We've got all three angles, we've got all three sides, and we are done with the problem.